Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. I understand our feed is live. I will call the public hearing to order. So, as I just suggested, we have up first on our agendas tonight a public hearing. The purpose of tonight's hearing is Bylaw 24, 2023, 365 Railway Street Land Use Bylaw Amendment. Generally, we would have an applicant, but because this is being led administratively, there is no applicant. So we'll go straight to the speakers list, if there is one. Coming my way. Thank you. I would just note that the questions that we would have for administration, because they are the applicant, will come at second reading, which will follow obviously later, well, in the new year now. And questions specific to land use bylaw amendment only, please, from council to any of the speakers. First up, I have Mr. Todd Simmer. Good afternoon.
Good evening. It's too bad it's taken this long. We're pretty much close to a year anniversary. And I wanted to thank, first of all, the Town of Cochrane, Mr. Krasinski, for answering me what I've been trying to get an answer for a year, which was my business license being valid. So I found that out last week. A little too late. Not having a business for a year with a $3 million mortgage pretty much doesn't work out very well. I'm here for two reasons. One, the building in question, I don't own anymore, and that's due to the delay. And second, as we know this petition has gone through, I'm putting it to you, council. Is it going to be the people that vote this in for clarity, transparency, public trust? I haven't paid attention to council in a number of years until this charade has started. But since I've been paying attention in September, I've noticed that there's numerous calls for clarity, numerous calls for doing better, numerous calls for transparency and issues with public trust, and members attacking one another up there. And as far as I'm concerned, it's shameful. So I'm not going to speak to the land because I don't own it anymore. But I am going to put it to you that if there's honorable councillors and members up there that are willing to stand up for public trust and transparency, then show me you can vote the petition through, or alternatively, I'll book my meeting with Minister McIver. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next on the list, we have Mr. Bruce Kendall.
I'm looking. Oh, is this on this?
Afternoon, Mr. Kendall.
Good evening. Nice to see y'all. I'm supposed to be the fifth one on the list, but I guess nobody else put anything.
You're our number 5.
Number
yes, 5 of 2.
But what happened to 2, 3, and 4? I have suspected that there was a very good chance this evening that not many people would come to speak either in favor or against, but I think it's a real unfortunate situation that's taken place here, and I'm glad to see the town taking the steps to restore what I would have thought would have been a no-brainer in terms of what that site should have been zoned after the land use bylaw was passed in whatever it was, September 21, I think it was. Anyway, the one thing I want to talk to you about tonight is process. We're here for a public hearing, which is wonderful. But my understanding is you're not going to have second reading tonight.
No.
Nor are you going to have third reading. And in a situation where if nobody gets to speak against, I believe that council owes it to the public, to the landowner, and to their administration to find ways to make things more efficient. And my view would be that if no one is here this evening to speak against this, that council find a way to approve this as quickly as possible instead of putting it off until the new year. And I'm assuming that it's council-led, that unless there's a great hue and cry, that it will be passed. But put this poor man out of his misery, and I think it would help discussions within the community as to how efficient or inefficient the bureaucracy is in this community. And I think it would be a great move for you. That's all I have to say. Thank you for the opportunity. Any questions? Not likely.
No,
Thank you.
See any? Thank you, Mr. Kendall. Oh, sorry, there is one question.
Well, I have a question for administration, arising from the information presented by our speaker. Would it be procedurally possible to advance it this evening, especially considering if there's no public opposition to the application?
Thank you, Councillor Nagel. I'll look to some of my colleagues to add to this. I do believe that administration would be preparing to share some information relative to this, and so there may still be some remaining work to be done there. It is always council's prerogative to set the agenda and to, of the upcoming regular council meeting, and placing this item on there, I believe, is procedurally acceptable and at the discretion of council. Administration would likely just share what information we have. It would be a little bit ad hoc at that point, rather than a formal presentation that may be prepared for the meeting it was intended to come to, which I believe would be the next regular meeting in early January. Perhaps, as I'm thinking as well, as just that with respect to Mr. Kindle, there is certainly in line with our normal processes, as well as dealing with this in an expeditious manner. So appreciate the question, though.
Okay, I'm not sure I have an answer. I mean, perhaps the public hearing is not the best place for me to ask this question, but is there a particular issue? Does administration feel strongly that administration needs more time to present facts in a formal presentation, or is it ready to go now?
I'll look to Mr. Hyman can maybe add to this. Is that we were preparing to present to council in the new year, and so I cannot suggest that that presentation would be exactly like what you might hear tonight. Obviously, administration is well versed in this issue and can speak to it. It just may not have the same comprehensiveness that it may if we were to have that come as intended in January. But maybe Mr. Hyman can add to that.
Yeah, Councillor Nagel, if council wishes to proceed with this tonight, as Mr. Kendall has recommended, if that's council's wish, please feel free to proceed. In terms of additional information, there would only be some minor information that we would perhaps have in the new year. So,
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
If I may, just one thing. This is the public hearing. At this point in time, I believe all parties should have concluded all of their work. I would feel that it is in the town's best interest, administration's best interest, and certainly the interest of the new owner of the property that this be dealt with. Anything that takes place after the public hearing could create a perception of bias, particularly if it was information that flowed between administration and council without the opportunity for the landowner to have input. After all, that's why you're here now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Kendall. I don't have anyone else on the speakers list. Is there anyone in the gallery wishing to speak for or against the bylaw?
I guess the last comment that I have.
Mr. Simmer, you had your time.
Zoning that we're asking for is what was put all around us. So
Mr. Simmer, we're well aware of the
The only thing that we're asking for is what you guys voted on in 2022.
We understand.
That's it.
We understand, Mr. Simmer. Thank you. Councillor Federico.
I would be for dealing with this tonight if it's around the table and that's a wish
Councillor
of.
Federico, just to interrupt you, that would be part of our next agenda. So when we talk about the agenda of our next meeting, when we conclude the public hearing, it's got really nothing to do with the public hearing. You can have exactly that conversation at the point when we call the meeting to order and talk about the agenda.
All right.
Okay. Councillor McFadden?
Yeah, sorry, I did have a question for the applicant, Mr. Simmer. Just real quick, so what's being recommended here, which is land use would be redesignated to a direct control O2
You
based
want to
on
come to the podium, Mr. Simmer?
GC, as read, that's what you want, correct?
At this point, the direct control
That's-
doesn't matter because we're not there, right? We're gone. The CG zoning, that is what was meant to be, as per the Nicole Tomes email and the way the area went, everything south of Railway went CG. In that CG, had we been put CG when everyone else did back in February of 2022, our 8 stories of residential would have been there. Market was there, along with the CS zoning that we had that said market, that you guys have all seen, those that would accept. Mr. Reed wouldn't call me back. The CG zoning is already there and you guys have already voted on it. So as far as the direct control, adding the greenhouse, I would like to put on record that not one person from the town of Cochrane walked into that building to see if we were actually acting outside of what we were zoned for. Not one. This has been a charade. This has destroyed us. And I see no reason why you can't put it back to CG tonight. Because that's what the whole thing was. You guys already voted on this. So if I sound frustrated, it's because I'm beyond. And I think that Howard May's article that he put out yesterday afternoon about a disgruntled business owner, I don't think it quite captures what this is. I don't really know how to answer your question other than I don't understand why this happened at all. All my wife wanted to do was help people, let them sell their stuff out of our store, and it cost us everything.
Councillor McFadden, did you get an answer to your question there?
I did, yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Simmer.
Okay.
Anyone else?
So just a question for administration, though. I am getting a sense from at least some of my colleagues that we would like to expedite the final, second and third reading tonight. So in the regular council meeting that follows, we'll be able to add that to the agenda. There's a process that would allow us to do that.
That is procedurally available to council, yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Anyone else in the gallery wishing to speak? Yeah, please come to the podium. State your name if you wouldn't mind, please, for the record.
My name is Ken Blair, and I'm half of an organization that did the Griffin Park Industrial Park. And back in the day, we got changed from what is called M2 zoning to M1, and it took away a number of requirements or zoning uses of that particular park. They also changed the landscaping, but when I look at the Municipal Government Act, it's called the Bible. And the Bible tells the towns how to administer all the bylaws. And what it is, and I believe on page 314, that when you want to change the zoning, you have to send a letter to each individual owner on the tax roll. And Mr. Zimmer here has never had received those. So it's gone back and forth for X number of time. And he's referred to administration that you cannot do that as per the MG Act. And here we are 9 months later, he's going through the same thing I went through 20 years ago when everything was changed. And talking to a number of realtors in town, including, I won't name their names, but I had the documentation of different landowners where their land zoning was changed. There's no notice to them. So why is this still going on 20 years later? When we have people we pay top dollar for that are supposed to know the MGA, which we call the Bible, in private industry. We look at it, we abide by the rules, but the rules are not being abided by administration or the town. So let this guy go, let him do what he was zoned for, because it's going back and forth like a yo-yo bar. That's not fair, and if you want to have more industry or commercial business to come to town, live by the rules. Don't put this guy in the ground. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I've got a question here, Councillor Flowers.
I just wanted to say it's hard to speak on someone else's behalf that there was no communication. From our understanding, there was lots of communication back and forth, so I'm sorry for what you went through 20 years ago, but this is a new situation and hope we're trying to rectify it.
Anyone else in the gallery? Not seeing any. Council, any last questions? Seeing any, we will close the public hearing. Let's take a 5-minute recess, let the feed reset to the regular meeting.